Thank you for joining us on Squawk. I'm Bruce Whitfield. You're watching CNBC Africa First in Business Worldwide. Tonight, Chris Gilmore from Absa Investments and David Shapiro from Sasfin join us with their insights. Let's first talk about the currency, if you dare. What a horrible story, David.
It is, and it's hard to find anybody who's coming out in support. I think we're being hurt not only by underlying weakness in the South African economy, but also this move globally out of emerging markets into developed markets. Disappointment in the performance of a lot of emerging markets. So we're being hit on two sides. So, and it doesn't look like it's going to get better. The only thing I think that will get it a lot better is when we finally see, the US growing, perhaps interest rates there going up, and other things happening in the world market that make people feel confident that we get a Rand revival. But for the meantime, fasten your seatbelts.
Give me
I think
some
it's going to be a rough
optimism.
ride.
Shapiro's upsetting me, Chris Gilmore.
Well, I think to try and dimension all of this, you have to go back about 20 years when emerging markets were all the buzz. Up until then, we'd hardly heard of the term emerging markets. And all of a sudden, it's flavour of the month, that's where you want to be. And I think China led the pack. But now with China slowing down noticeably, and many other emerging markets doing precisely the same thing, you're getting, in the US, you're getting Dr. Ben Bernanke with his teaser saying, well, we might just take our foot off the pedal just now, when in fact they've got no intention of doing it because it's still very, very sick. But it was enough to get this kind of movement out of emerging markets back into developed markets. If you chart most of your emerging market currencies, and I'm thinking about things like the Brazilian real, Turkish baht, sorry, not the Turkish baht, Turkish lira, the Thai baht, because of the T. And even things like the Aussie dollar, I know it's a commodity.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rand and all of these have gone in the same direction. It's just the Rand's blown out an awful lot more
But
than
see,
any
if
of
Rand blows out, then it can easily be sucked back in.
Yes.
It can be sucked in, but what's going to suck it back in? What I'm scared about is the stampede out of
the bond market.
The bond market and the equity market.
Yeah.
We don't know. It's something we can't get a grip on. And there's nothing worse than uncertainty. And all of a sudden, when that starts to happen, out come the analysts with the negative views, and they start exacerbating or complicating issues. I haven't picked up one generous report about South Africa for a long time. Even this morning, reading a well-known strategist saying, underweight South Africa, underweight South African bonds, underweight South African equities. And you look, we've got money here, and we say, so how do we position ourselves? You don't want to position yourself in bonds or fixed interest because you're going to lose capital. You don't want to put yourself in equity. So it's basically saying stay with cash in South Africa, but you're losing purchasing power.
Most certainly. I was chatting to a guy called Anthony Ginsberg this week. Anthony Ginsberg used to work at Barclays before Barclays was FNB, and he got into trouble with his bosses because he wrote an economic report on South Africa, which they didn't particularly like very much. So he left Barclays and he went, and now he lives in America. He's running funds in America. He's got big clients in South Africa, Old Mutual, Sanlam, and the like. And they called him for an emergency meeting this week and said to him, please come, because we really need to talk about taking some money out of the country. Now, when the big financial institutions are talking about maxing their offshore exposures as much as possible, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it?
Yeah, but and David, you'll appreciate this. I think over the past 20, 30 years, we've seen it. When it comes to timing your exit in terms of getting money out of South Africa, most of the institutions get it so badly wrong, it's quite uncanny. And
so we should take this as a good sign.
I think you should. Precisely.
They're 2 years too late.
Exactly.
They're 2 years too late, but it doesn't mean that for the next 6 to 12 months we're not settling in for a bumpy ride. We could go to 11, we could go to 12.
You know what worries me? You know what concerns me? And you say that we can't snap back. This reminds me, although I don't want to draw a parallel between the political background, it reminds me of 85. When PW wagged his finger, because that was a South African situation.
It was a South African situation saying to the rest of the world, and he was wagging this finger, but he wasn't showing them that finger. He was showing them one of the others. And effectively, it feels like we're saying to the world, leave us alone. We're autonomous. We do things our own way. And if you can't see the way we do things, well then, Bruce, up yours the laws.
You've said it. And that's why every day as we read the headlines, there just seems to be the situation or the attitude, we know what we're doing, don't tell us what to do, which was PW's attitude. And that in other areas, when we fell in 98, 2001, 2008, when the rand really went through period, that was extraneous factors.
Yeah.
That wasn't related to us.
Okay. Let's talk about
we have to get things right.
Let's talk about a state-owned enterprise that seems to be getting things right. Let's have a bit of a happy story. I need happy stories, otherwise,
which one is that?
Do you want to see my scars? Telkom, which has decided to impair its legacy network. I see this as a very good news story. Do you, David?
I read that report. It's the first time I felt confident that management is going to do the right things. This is step one, write down the assets, because the market's already written them down. That's number one. Number two, let's restructure. In other words, get rid of staff, more efficiencies, etc. If they can carry on with plan two, with plan B or the next plan, the next step, then we're on we're on the path to some sort of recovery.
I see this as the new board, and as you and I were talking about earlier, Chris, well, this is like ABSA board, really. You've got Louis Wunziona, Jacques Chineta, Santi Buerta, the old ABSA board who've moved it to Telkom, and then, of course, you've got the new chief executive, the new chairman. There is a new leadership structure, and for the first time, somebody's participating in some legitimate financial engineering, which is going to set up a structure for this business for the future, which the past 5 boards haven't bothered doing.
No, you're quite right. And I mean, if you go way back, a good 10, 15 years ago, I suppose, I mean, they had the opportunity to change
Telkom.
Another state-owned enterprise. By the way,
so many.
By the way, this is
600 or 700.
This is not supposed to be a state-owned enterprise. This is actually a
semi-privatized,
private partnership. The thing would have been to have done what BT did in the UK back in the 80s. In other words, to say to all comers, listen, come and use our backbone. It's there, it's sunk into the ground, and we can have an annuity income for in perpetuity. But they decided, no, they didn't actually want to do that.
Because that would allow competition.
Well, exactly, and precisely. And a lot of the figures around at the time in government and within the organisation didn't really want that. So instead they went off into ill-considered ventures into Nigeria with the wrong type of technology, CDMA, this type of thing, and it all fell in a heap. Now what you're doing, I agree with you, is actually quite right. You're impairing the assets. You're going to get all of the accounting metrics are going to look an awful lot better. There does seem to be a genuine desire to change things, and goodness knows they need it, because for so long they've been going off at a tangent.
They also recognise what's happening in the market.
Yeah.
The power of mobile, the power of the internet. And I think if they can get that right and just stick to their fixed line business and offer a decent service around, like BT, exactly like BT, then that value will start to increase. We'll double the share.
But I'm looking at this and I'm hoping against hope that this is now the poster boy for a state-owned enterprise model. You put professional directors and you put somebody like Sipho Maseko in, who's worked at BP and he's worked at Vodacom. He's now the chief executive. Got Jabu Mabuza, who was at Tsoho's son as chairman, went into retirement, felt obliged because he was called upon to do so to become the chairman of the company. They brought clever people onto the board. That sounds pretty promising, but let's not live in false hope. The proof of the pudding, as
they've
they say.
Still got to get through government.
Yes.
They've still got to bash through their biggest shareholder.
They've got to bash through Dina Pule.
Yes.
Okay. SAA planning to spend lots of money on aeroplanes, which is all well and good. $4 to $7 billion they're talking about. So we need to dig deep and pay for those.
They've got to do it.
They do have to do it. But Comair had a trading update just this morning. And Comair's trading update is looking pretty rosy. They bought new aircraft. By buying new aircraft, they are adding to the bottom line because they're more efficient. And the Comair story seems to be coming together quite nicely.
Well, you've also got rid of one time.
Yes,
yeah.
If you go down to Tambo, you'll see all the one times lined up there.
They're parked in the Federal Air parking lot. Yeah.
The big story now is that you have to have efficient aircraft. With your costs going up all the time, if you haven't got the new Dreamliner or you haven't got the new A series, I don't know what they call 380s of that, you can't operate profitably. No. So you have to change your aircraft. Comair are doing that, much more efficient, and I'm sure SAA have to do it at our expense.
No, of course they do, but we still get cheap flights, so that's fine. Tell me about Brait and the magic of Brait, because here's Brait, which is more Pepcore, really.
Well, it is mainly Pepcore. I mean, and they've changed the flavour of the company. It used to be a private equity company. It's much more a kind of long-term investment trust type of thing these days.
It's more Remgrowy than it used to be.
Yes, precisely. And I mean, look, the results, if you look at them at face value, they weren't that inspiring, and pretty much the same as they were in the previous 6 months. But yeah, I think, as you rightly say, Pepcore is the one that is really driving this thing. And it's unfortunate that you can't actually see what's going on there. But I think the positioning of Pepcore at that part of the market, the low end of the market, once you can get beyond the stigma of actually walking into one of these stores and you see what they're selling, pile them high, sell them cheap. It's fantastic. It's a wonderful formula, and it still keeps on working, particularly in an economy like this, which is floundering.
Now we know where Chris Gilmore gets his vests and other things.
They're not bad.
Little scratchy perhaps, but...
and you're not going to find them in Sandton City there, but you go out to Mpumalanga.
There's an AC Kermans and a Mr. Price. And all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, certainly Pep stores in small towns, they own the small towns, and that's the old-fashioned general dealer is gone, and Pep stores fills that particular role.
Taken where Mr. Price used to be.
Absolutely, and filled that gap, and it's a big gap to fill as well. So good one on Brait on that particular front. Adcock Ingram, Jonathan Lowe. He says, I don't know anything about the board's negotiations. I don't believe him for a second.
You know what?
But there's
just go to the butcher shop or go to Sandton City. You see millions of people out there. Lots of them flying in day by day to do deals and that. There's hundreds of them lining up to do that. So I think if you keep tabs on Adcock's head office, just watch
how many deals are on the table, because they refer in the announcement to multiple opportunities that are open for them. This is fabulous. For shareholders of Adcock Ingram who got nothing out of this company for the last 5 years.
From what I can gather, the Joffy deal is in abeyance. It's not off the table, but it's not on either.
Well, Joffy was told to go away, and he hasn't come back again.
And some people would argue that he didn't even make a proper offer in the first place.
Adcock Ingram says that, yeah.
Whatever he did, he catalyzed a whole bunch of other people. Adcock Ingram is looking very good these days in terms of the way it's been reworked, in terms of they've had to increase the capacity. A lot of time, effort and money has gone into this thing. But I think now they're at the position where they are going to get taken up by somebody, because they need a partner, a big technology partner, a multinational. They're not an Aspen at this point in time by any stretch of the imagination. And they're not as nimble as Aspen. They can't do the kind of things that Aspen wants. But I think, as you rightly say, they're going to get taken up by somebody. And I don't think it'll take too long.
No, and the share price
it'll be a big name.
Reflecting
whether it's I don't know enough about them, whether it's one of the Indian companies, a Teva or somewhere around there. You could find, or even a Sanofi or any of those. They will come because this is access into Africa. They want to replicate the Aspen model.
Yes, they do. For the African continent, where Aspen has gone global.
I think they're looking for a company to be their emerging market play.
All right, so Adcock Ingram at $68. Is it still worth a bit of a flutter, considering there could be 2 or 3 potential bidders who get a fight for it?
This is going to be a fight.
Okay.
It looks cheap compared to the other two.
Yeah. Whenever it comes to M&As, egos are a very big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we like a little bit of ego, especially if you're a shareholder, and you can get a benefit from it as well. Finally, vehicle sales were up about 7.5%, but that's surely a bubble that has got to pop. I can't understand why it hasn't yet.
I'm thinking differently. I go and I look at in the road and I see BCs and BAs, and you see how many new cars there are, and I think I'm coming to believe that it's a big South African culture thing. We love new cars. And we'll do anything to get a new car.
Well, you would.
Not me.
Yes, I'm saying you switch your minis. No, you get the same mini every 2 years. It's got an extra little switch in it or a light or something. You're terrible like that.
We do change. I would have thought with technology where it is today, we'd have 10-year cars. No, we change them over. So it's the same as cell phones. I think South Africans would rather starve, not have furniture, than give up their motor cars and
Nobody
their cell
sees
phones.
your furniture, but they do see you in the traffic, sitting in the traffic jam in your car. But
there may be a bit of preemptive buying there. We talked about the rand earlier. So people, are thinking, well, the price is going to go up significantly. Rather jump in there now.
Chances are that rates are going to go up rather than go down. The weak rand is precipitating that. The rand weakening means that imported car components in cars are going to go up. The cost of buying a car is going up. Preemptive buying is, I suppose, a very strong argument to be made there.
It is, but even if you look at the absolute number of vehicles being sold, it's way beyond where we should be in an economy that's battling. I'm trying to find the answer.
I was sat in the traffic this morning just looking at the new cars coming past my chore. Because I have a principal issue here.
Something that didn't get a lot of publicity here about 3 weeks ago was the fact that Ford is now pulling out of Australia after 91 years. And I don't know what the figures are.
You didn't want to drive a Holden.
Yeah, well, Holden's the GM version, isn't it?
Which one is a Ford?
This is Ford. Well, Ford is Ford.
Ford and Holden, yes. But Ford and Holden, yeah.
Yeah. But the point I'm
But
trying to
Australians
make,
like them because Australians.
I mean, but it comes back to what you were talking about in terms of the actual physical numbers that we produce here. They're derisory. They're absolutely tiny. Now, is there a possibility, and I'm just throwing this around for discussion, that the likes of a Ford might say, well, South Africa, does it really matter? Have we really made the push into the rest of Africa that we thought we were going to do when we located here in the 1930s and 40s? No, we obviously haven't. And now you're up against the Indians.
But you've got to be a
and
lot more
Chinese.
courageous to pull out of South Africa with an African promise than you do out of Australia
I
for
know.
Australian
I
promise.
know, that's what I'm saying.
Look
So
at
there's
the
a debate
bottom
there.
end, those tatas and those funny little boxes that people drive,
Yeah.
you know, with
called
the
a Mini,
Korean
David.
name. No, mine.